what we like. I do like the idea that we are not putting donut holes in attendance areas and sending those children past an elementary school to another elementary school.
Well, I appreciate those comments, Jim. On the other hand, I'm not absolutely certain that's a bad thing. And you know, that's one man's opinion also. But where not all of our districts are contiguous for certain schools and areas, and you know, sometimes it may make more sense to do that. And if we, you know, again, I don't know what the research is, but my guess is that not all of those are bad situations. And so I think we might want to look at that on a more case-by-case basis. In other words, what I think I'm saying is I don't know how important that is as one of our principles. I appreciate and respect what your thoughts on it too. But I think you know, it might be worthwhile for all of us to kind of think through that. No comment.
Well, I mean, I don't intend to turn this into a dialogue, so if there is
okay. All right, Scott, are you there?
I am here.
Welcome. I hope you had a nice holiday.
I did, thank you. I hope you did too.
I did. A lot of conversation about redistricting in Fayette County. Even at our own family functions.
I want to go there.
There are too many teachers in my family.
Everybody has an opinion.
Yeah. Scott, what we want to do is begin with some conversations about the scenarios that you sent to us at our request. Anybody want to start the conversation?
Well, you.
I noticed.
Go ahead.
No, just a couple of schools that I felt like Wendover and Cassidy. Those schools just got butchered. I don't know if anyone else noticed that or had a concern about that, but I felt like that just seemed a little extreme. I think this is just my personal opinion, but when we started this process and we started looking at all the numbers and free reduced lunch and all that, for some reason Wendover stood out to me. It has over 40% free reduced lunch. It has nice numbers, yet it still has excellent test scores. And I feel like it was a gem. I mean, I feel like it was kind of a model school where it says, hey, you don't have to have low free reduced lunch to be a high-performing student. And I guess to see that get butchered, I don't know anyone at that school, so I have no personal anything to that school, but I saw that and it made me mad, so that's my opinion.
I have an opinion too, Alan. My concern with the scenario is the amount of students that it would affect, which is, for you, those of you that do not have this right in front of you, 7,662 students that would change schools.
Again, not speaking as a chairperson, but just a member of this committee, I too agree that almost a crazy number for us to be thinking about, and very quickly we can see that this particular scenario probably isn't going to work for us. And I think that's important for us. Again, part of the process here is as we review these scenarios, quite often we look at something and say, that's not going to work, just go on with the next thing. And I think we may be there with this, although I'd like to see if anybody else has a thought about that. Yes, sir.
I mean, I agree. I think we're too quick to move students, but it's not a problem. And then also on the planned elementary school, I-75 cuts that district right now. You know, there's only certain places you cross I-75 through there. I think if anything on any school on that side of the interstate, on the service side of the interstate, not try to go around.
You're talking about the agent's Charlesburg.
Well, the agent Charlesburg is not so bad, but the new school,
right,
planned east of I-75.
Well, and if you, yeah, you're right.
See it? I mean, that's, if it were to service the new growth area out there, trying to cross back forth.
Right.
Can't cross right.
Scott, are you able to follow these comments?
Yeah, somewhat. I can.
Any thoughts?
Well, no, I agree with everybody. I don't like my work being called butchered, but that's okay because it did butcher Glendale.
The other, I just felt bad for those schools. I mean, you're completely changing.
I'm just telling you, it's 76.1 degrees here. Okay, I'm having a hard time. It's below 80.
Okay,
So, but what I do agree is that this is not going to work. It's moving way too many school residents for students, not necessarily their school, but their school residents. And so I think what we need to do is, I know getting some neighborhood schools is really important, and maybe we go back and look at that school to capacity, the closest school to capacity, and then make adjustments from there. And that would be my suggestion at this point. We're going to have to make some compromises at some place. We're going to have is it going to be a compromise on free and reduced? Is it going to be a compromise on neighborhood schools? Are we going to have to go to non-contiguous areas? That's a possibility. Or, so we're going to have to work this through as a group.
Close to capacity with the least amount of changes is what I'd recommend. Scott, can we start again with, like you said, the closest to capacity schools with the least amount of changes, and start from there?
Okay.
And then just make the changes necessary so we don't disrupt some of these kids.
we serve at the pleasure of the committee.
Okay, so that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to reassign this to school capacity.
Can we overlay that with the current boundaries also,
Yes.
so we can distinguish?
Yeah, I'll have that. Okay.
Others?
There are going to be some unassigned areas. I'm going to make them dark red.
And I'm a dumbass.
He really said that.
I'm about to say that as a
Doesn't matter about it.
You guys are having way too much fun over there.
Okay, thank you. Where were we? I'm sorry. So what did we just asked for? What?
Closest to capacity and least amount of change.
With an overlay of current boundaries.
Okay, Scott, you got that?
I got it, and I'm about to overlay the current boundaries, or am I not? Too bad.
No, that's it. And that's the part of it is.
Okay. So
That has to be yeah, no, that'll be that's the amount of changes. Probably do we have that map from before?
Yeah.
Do we? Because I see closer to capacity, but does it say with fewest changes?
This is 8,000.
well, that's what that means. It was just straight out of just exactly what I've done, closest capacity. When I didn't adjust it after that.
Oh.
That's
That's one that's unassigned. It's like,
okay.
2,000.
So that's why that number's
There's 2,100 that are unassigned.
Okay.
Committee members, try to remember to speak into the microphones if you can.
It is recorded.
So you've got pockets of unassigned in some of these areas. Okay, so what we want to do is you want to get it as close to the school, but also eliminate a lot of changes that we don't need. And that's what I'm getting. So like something like this.
An old map.
But does it not have the marked out areas?
Yeah, it's got marked out areas. It's got cross-hatched areas. Scott, I was pointing out, if they have their old maps, it's the one that has cross-hatched areas that are not assigned. Is that correct?
I believe so.
And at least at this point in time, it says 8,100 students to change.
Yeah. This is the map that I created, and this is what we have right now. So we do have these hatched areas that are not assigned to anything. So that actually represents what we have here. It's the same map. So looking at this map, where would you guys like to start? And once again,
before we start, I got a question to ask. On this map that we're looking at right now, which is the one that was printed a couple meetings ago, close to the school capacity, 8,100 kids, that's the number of kids that are changing school.
Yeah.
So the map that we got only has 7,600 kids that are changing school.
But you have all the numbers, the areas that are unassigned.
2,100.
Yeah,
But those count,
yeah.
That's still going to keep it to 6,000.
So that makes it even worse.
So are those in the calculation?
no, they're not. They're in the calculations of that 8,100 because they're in an area of unassigned. So what they're currently going, they're unassigned now. So that is in that calculation.
Scott, can we refine that a little bit? Can we put in there the least amount of adjustments? Can you put that in there also?
I can. This is no adjustments afterwards. That can be done on the next set of maps. But we don't, yeah, we could try to do that.
For the fewest adjustments. And can we also bring up the percentage of capacity, because I don't think that shows on here, so we'll know what percentage we're at for each of the area too.
I have that.
Because that's not how it's set. Where we change it.
I think right at the top, when you look at Russell Cave, I mean, they've got 50-something students there. That's something we know we're going to have to address if we're going to work off this map.
Well, I think anytime you start looking at close schools, it's going to move just a high capacity number of students because that's not the way it's set up right now. Like when you look at closest schools, we saw that at the very beginning of this process. When you look at closest schools, it messes up the numbers greatly. So like what he has done makes it better, even better than what we're trying to do right now.
If we added in the least amount of adjustments, though, then it won't. We're trying to get lower than that 7,000 number. We don't want to change that many kids if we don't have to, and so we want to bring it up like this. I know it's an 8,000 amount of adjustment. So this amount of change, and then we can manually make whatever changes we need to meet the other requirements.
But to keep in mind that our conversation along the way has been, we want to impact the fewest number of students that we can. We want to be as close to the appropriate capacity levels in each of our schools as we can, and we want kids to be as close to their neighborhood as we can. There are other that we need to address along the way. Those have been the basics of what we've been trying to accomplish. And unless someone feels that we need to move away from that, we should keep that in mind as our baseline as we move forward. And that's not the direction we want to go.
No, and from the forums before, that's what the public seemed to want also.
Absolutely. I can tell you from many of the comments that I get that those three things we will land within all of those comments.
Well, this is Ron remotely. Hi, everybody. One thing when I hear that, though, you know, in terms of the particular one of affecting the fewest number of students, that's the one that we could actually deal with by talking about grandfathering after we get things put together. And that could alleviate some of that problem despite what the maps might say in terms of students displaced.
Ron makes a good point. We did leave our last meeting with a consensus that grandfathering would be an ideal situation as we move forward also.
I think grandfathering is very important, but the less changes we make, the easier the grandfathering is going to be. And I'm not saying that we're going to leave it with a few changes, but that's a good starting point. And then we can manually make whatever change.
Now, I've just been thinking about this a little bit, and you can shut me down immediately if it's not what we want to do. But really, we've got two things we have to do here. First off, we have to get attendance areas for the two new elementary schools. And then, why don't we go down and address some of these inequities, like the Booker Washington 167% over capacity. If we don't need, or 67% over capacity, say we don't need to touch ACE, they're at 97%. Maybe we don't have to touch them at all and leave the same attendance area. Unless you really do want to get rid of these non-contiguous areas, maybe we just go from where we are now, carve out our two new schools, and then adjust where we see the inequalities. It's kind of a different direction than we've been going, but I think we're going back to the same thing we did the other day, where we're just talking about it and not making moves.
That is a different direction. Bill, did you have a comment? Bill Farmer. Okay, I'm sorry. How do you suggest that we do that specifically?
Well, I think the first thing we have to do is like I said, carve out those new schools. That's the most important. They don't have an attendance area. There are going to be students there that change their attendance area.
So we're talking about going from the current map and just making the new schools.
Yes.
Well, that makes sense.
That's kind of where we started. That's kind of where we were at last time.
Yeah.
Yep.
This is where we started last week.
I think we already got a lot of this working out.
Yep.
Well, we didn't really do it with elementary, did we?
There's a big purple area that was shaded. Remember on the side of the world, we were talking about it forever.
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
Could you, we're going to put you on hold for a second.
Scott, we're getting some static again.
He put us on hold.
Okay. Well, it did go away.
I think we decided last meeting it was his beard. Remember? He said he had a beard.
Stop laying down.
You know, the golf course. Yeah.
This committee has very little facial hair.
Thank you.
I'll start next week. I'll start next week.
Just an observation. I don't know.
I just had a colleague tell me that we're getting a lot of static from me, but it's not my beard this time. I got it well away from my beard. I'm going to try to call in.
We can't hear you, Scott.
And it wasn't his beard.
Oh, it wasn't his beard. Okay.
I'm going to call in. I'm going to call you. I'm going to call into this conversation using the meeting ID, the way you guys have called into us. Okay, so I will. I'm going to reconnect differently now. So give me a second.
Maybe I'm wrong, but I thought we made that decision last time, and then
We did.
spent the whole meeting.
The whole meeting we spent doing that.
Yeah.
And then we went back and said, Scott, you figure it out.
Yeah, but we don't have a map. We don't have that map though, because it went from this map until the map that he gave us today. So we don't have that map, I guess.
I just don't know that what he did is, do you all think that's a viable option?
I think we should at least try to start with what we have and do what we did at the last meeting.
Well, I thought what we had
And let's change it.
was closer to an
Current.
ideal than what we have right here.
I think so too.
I think we all agree on that, right?
Yeah.
What was Ron talking about? Was he saying after we create a map, go back and look at the fewest changes map and use that when we talk about?
Ron, are you there? Did you hear that?
Yeah,
Did we lose?
hear me? We can hear you.
Is this a little better?
Very much so.
Okay. So we'll be doing these through, I'm through a telephone, not a headset. Okay, so what did we decide why I was messing with this?
Where we left it last week, not maybe at the end, but the map we were working on, is that still available or has it vanished?
It might still be available. I honestly don't remember if I left it or not.
I think our consensus is that if we could go back to that and then follow your suggestion about the two new schools, that we might be able to get where we want to be. Unless I've misunderstood. Right. But as Mike pointed out, we've got the physical barriers of the interstate.
Have to see if one of these is it. This is the closest capacity. Now, I don't have the one from last week or last time because I didn't think we finalized that or had anything that we really had done with that. We started with just the current, and then I think we started over here in this area and just moved very little. We only touched one or two schools, if I remember correctly.
Don't you think, Ben, that it would probably be easier to go back to the current ones and start from there instead of starting from the ones that we have today? So we'll probably have to start all over again from the current.
I agree.
Okay.
I do agree with that. Let me see. Let me close this. All right, so this is what we have up now is the current. And so what we want to do is add those two new schools. I'm sorry?
First step is to work on the two schools and get them to a capacity we can work with, go from there to fix or even address any issues outside of that we can find.
Yes, that's exactly agree.
We were just chatting. I wonder if it makes some sense if we can go back to that map, or whichever map we go to, if we sort of split the county in two, and everything to the south and east versus everything that is to the west, basically, and just work on one of those halves at a time and fix whatever problems we might have there. And if you know, there's a thought process that says, why don't we take what Scott has given us and then identify what we don't like about it, and having, you know, each of those things try to deal with.
Or is it easier to start with the current map, identify what we don't like with the current map, since that's what we're building on?
Yeah, and I agree, because I think why should we change an attendance area if we don't need to? And that's the point that we have to look at. There's going to be areas that we just don't need to change and touch, so we're not going to do it just to move it, just for the sake of moving it.
And let's try to identify the problems.
Right. The first problem is, to me, placing a new school.
Nobody's in the two schools. That's a big one.
Yeah.
Which one do you want to start with?
That's to the north and east.
Which area would you have to start in?
So you've got a school up here, and you've got a school down here.
Which one do we start with? Which of these schools? There's two of them, so we need to start with one of them. The one you said down here.
Well, I don't have a thought about that.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah, I don't think it matters. But
We're going to start with the northern one.
The yellow one.
This is the current one.
Yeah, but
Like right here.
Okay, this is the new school here. I can't really hear what you guys are talking about.
Trying to locate it.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's Georgetown Road, Citation Road.
On 548.
So you start with pulling kids from Sandersville?
right,
Yeah, Sandersville's way up.
right here.
Well, I would guess that we want to start with the ones that are adjacent to it.
Right.
Correct.
That's the subdivision right there.
Is that all that?
So that we can make them all contiguous.
No, that's citation.
That's like, yeah.
Can you guys read the street names?
Yeah.
Okay, good. All right. So do we want to continue on with these
Yes.
up to the Circle Road?
Yes.
Okay, so that still doesn't quite fill it. Now we want to leave space in it for growth, and new schools do attract new students.
Scott, we
Not even 50.
probably want to use this opportunity to address Sandersville's overcrowding.
Yeah, we've got Sandersville and Booker T, right?
Not all of that's necessarily Masterson Station. There's two other neighborhoods that are between it and Masterson Station that are kind of off on their own. I mean, so it wouldn't be taking all of Masterson Station necessarily either. Yeah. Yeah. And we,
Okay, so which direction do we want to go in? Do we want to do
30, 31, 34. 34.
30, 34, 31.
27.
Okay, that brings it up to about 65%.
Can you do 35? 29?
Booker T's over 2, so even going to 41 is...
On that 27, it looks like we're basically taking half of the streets that is to one school and half the streets to the other school. You want to do that?
Do you want to do 29?
No, yeah, that's fine, fine.
Well, wait, what?
What did that bring us?
Is that a neighborhood?
It's that neighborhood that's kind of fast moving there.
Yeah, so we could take from Sandersonville or Booker T because they're both over.
Right.
Booker T's is way over.
And this is a non-contiguous area, so why don't we try to make that, give it a neighborhood school?
Yeah.
There's not going to be a lot of kids in there probably.
Yeah, there's one student.
There's one kid.
There was one kid.
Yeah.
Wow.
So we're at 68% of 442. It's not completely full, but it is actually at a nice spot where we might be able to stop for now and concentrate on somewhere else and maybe come back to it.
Yeah.
Are you concerned about 27? Are you?
Something maybe to go back and look at.
It's not part of it.
So let's go look at the other one. And this is the one that caused a little bit of heartburn last time. Okay. So do we want to keep it on one side of the I-75? Do we want to move to the other side?
I think on the right side of 75 makes the most sense just because of geographic location of where it's at and where the entrances are and the crossings of it are at this point.
But I think north
Okay.
is hard.
Right. Like between Todd's Road and Man of War on the right side of 75.
Okay. So you're talking, so here's Todd's Road, and I don't know where Man of War is.
North of that.
Would it be, which study area?
Can't see it. Yeah.
Remember like 247, 248 out this way?
878. A and B, 247.
247, 248,
Above 133.
and 246.
Not 278 and 278B, huh?
And 133, 134 would be a pretty good fit in it as well. It's right off the same street.
Oh, I'm sorry, I was looking wrong.
I don't think so.
I'm sorry, I was looking wrong.
278 and 278, A and B need to be in there.
We're going to get a lot of kids in there.
No,
Okay,
no,
so that's,
it was-
we've got 112 students in there right now.
Now, 133 and 134, that's the same. That's all one subdivision, and 132 and 131, all the way up to Man of War. That's all one subdivision right there.
And that would keep that subdivision intact.
And yes,
Yeah.
with the natural boundary.
Yeah.
Okay.
135, 136, those back areas.
Yeah, and 249.
Blackfoot. It should probably go in there too.
Even if there's no kids.
117, 118.
Yes.
Yep, yes, and 249.
All the way down there.
What do you think? I think there's not a lot out there.
There anybody out there?
Not a
Well,
lot.
there's probably not a lot out there, but that way it's already distributed to a school.
117 too, because it kind of splits
Growth
the
area.
backside of the neighborhood. So there'll be a few that would make sense to probably stick that in as well.
This one? And just for aesthetics, I'm going to do 116 also.
I'll go in there.
Scott, while you're...
Now, what about this neighborhood here?
Scott,
Yes.
put the urban service boundary line on there for this, because that will help us know what neighborhoods are not in the urban area.
I'm sorry, I couldn't understand that.
The urban service boundary, the growth boundary, could you put that on as well while we're looking at
Oh,
this?
yes. I certainly can.
118, 119, is that what you're saying? Yeah. The Greenbrier.
So this is the urban service area.
Well, if you stick 118, 119 in the new school, you'll see what the number looks like. That's a really neat look on, at least on the map.
I don't think there's any
Not being
9 students in there.
We're going to Dixie now.
Well, then 118, yeah, there we go.
Now, we could put all of this in there also. It's getting pretty far, but I'm sure any students that are out here are bused anyway.
Yeah. What is it?
Where is it currently?
Where are they?
South of the interstate, 64.
That's not exactly what school is it?
We're all in Dixie now. Yes.
Those schools, I know we're going to make more changes, but they're kind of under capacity, but the Liberty is over capacity, so maybe we need to look at that area right there.
That's a good point. Yeah, it's well over.
These changes have gutted Yates, too. It's down to 51%. So.
Oh, wow.
It's down to what?
Oh, wow.
51%. You're Dixie Yates. But if you go into the 242, 243, 244, that area. Right.
Well, those areas are already in Liberty, so we don't want to take it away from Liberty at this point.
No.
Liberty's
Liberty's at
Liberty's
131.
131.
Okay, let's. Okay.
Well, if you want to release Ace, you can say 245. It's on the other side of Todd's Road. That would be a nice clean line for Ace. If you want to open up some room there to bring in some other neighborhoods.
I think Ace is already down, though, isn't it? Yeah, Ace is already at 85%.
85.
There's a lot of kids. I mean, there's a lot of all of Charlesburg and this area right around Ace. Everything. If we want to put in everything on the other side of Richmond Road into Ace, I think we need to.
Well, you
make more
see,
room.
if you look at ACE, the areas right around there are not in right now. So we know we're going to have to add like the 56 right around ACE is going to need to be added in. So we're going to have to pull something out.
So if you pull something out, then that gives us the more contiguous area around.
Right, we need to add the ones right around ACE in.
243 and 244 were into ACE. That's taken out of Liberty, leaving Liberty, which is what we're trying to do without going across 75.
We might have to come across 75 because you need to help Liberty and you need to help ACE are the two that you need to. So we're going to have to come across 75 in that area, I think. Don't you, Bob?
What I just said.
Yeah. Going over a bridge. It's not.
Yeah, it's not.
You take a left out of your neighborhood, go across the bridge, down Polo Club to the school. It's
Because the schools to the north so much don't need the relieving as
What I'm
Liberty
saying is,
and
if you're saying Liberty's over capacity, which we decided, which is 243 and 244 in Liberty right now, Ace is under as we've got it set right here, so putting them into Ace.
No, we're talking about putting them into the new school.
Well, either way, taking them out of Liberty, so that's
Relieve Liberty and add numbers right.
But if we take a little bit more out of ACE, then that gives us the capacity to enclose that area, right?
So,
instead of coming across 75, we're encapsulating the school with the neighborhood.
Yeah, my first thought would be to try to get some of this area into ACE.
Yes, that's what we're trying to
What
do.
we're trying to do to make more room. Hodge Road is just a dividing line for Ace. It seems clean to me, but.
So that brings ACE, though, if I brought all this area here up to 909 in that area. So we might not be able to take all of that, even though that doesn't include, even though it still includes these two areas here. And also down here, where there's 9 students, there's 72 students and 24 students. So maybe we swap that and put this back into Liberty.
Liberty's already overcrowded.
Or into Breckenridge.
Breckenridge.
Yeah.
Bob, can we put that into Breckenridge?
So let me know if you want me to pull the trigger on this, and we could try it. I can always go back if it doesn't work.
Try putting them in Breckenridge.
Okay. Okay, Breckenridge is a little over, and so is ACE.
How old are they?
139. 124.
How many students were in 245, Scott?
Okay, I can't find 245.
It's a little sliver above Todd's Road.
Yeah, it's just on the other side of Todd's Road.
56.
If we use the Todd's Road as the dividing line.
Oh, there's 56 kids in it.
Thank you. 245 right there. 47. Your 56 might be from 2013-14 students. I've got to give you a new one of those because this is 2014-15 students. Not going to be a big difference, but it might be a slight difference. So there's 245, there's 47 students. Now if we take that out, that's still pretty high there.
You haven't taken 245 out yet, have you?
Yes. So we haven't decided anything about 243, 244, and 245. Could those go to the new school?
You want these to go to the new school?
Yes.
Okay, so that is right at the 100 point. And Liberty, it almost frees up Liberty. And we still have to do a little bit about ACE and Breckenridge.
As far as the new school goes, we took a lot of students out of Yates, and it's down to 51, so we could get that 100 down to leave room for growth by putting some of those back in Yates.
Yeah.
That's what we should do.
Well, and that's what we need to think about, too. The new school in this location, there's still a lot of, how many houses are targeted for that area?
We
the
thought
new
there was
schools?
about 1,500 more houses.
So there's going to be more growth in the new schools. We don't want to take it up to 100%, I don't think. There's still 1,500 houses scheduled to go in that area.
So what if we
Hang on, before we say what if, was that you, Aaron? I'm sorry.
I'll let it slide this time.
Well, I was just going to suggest that we're not that far off here with what we've got. But I am anxious to hear what you were going to suggest.
I think I was going to maybe suggest the same thing that you are. If we are close to 100% on these things, what if we went and looked at Yates to see where we pulled from there and how things looked? So leave this for right now and move to Yates, see what that does for Liberty, and if we need to come back.
You are saying what I was suggesting.
See?
Yeah. You just said it better than I would have.
That's probably true.
And it's nice and aesthetically contiguous, Jim. It looks pretty.
Not the aesthetic. How about
Okay, kids.
So Yates is kind of tiny.
Yates,
You want to move toward Yates?
Northern's a little over. Liberty's a little over.
So Yates, yeah, it's adjacent to Northern. How about maybe these areas going from Northern into Yates?
please?
Okay, that brings it up to almost 60%. Looks like these all probably should go to Dixie. What else is around there that might be a little bit over? Deep Springs, Arlington, it's okay. Yeah. Maybe we take a little bit more from Northern.
So I would say that's kind of divided in a big area between that one group of Northern going up to the other schools. We might want to rearrange some of that. You see how it's got the two sections for Northern?
Yeah, up here and then down here.
Right, we might want to move more into Yates and move some of Yates up into Northern. No?
And if it's too many, you can
No, that's not actually a very bad idea to me, is put this into these areas into Northern and then put this area back into Yates. It kind of makes a little sense.
Yeah, let's try that. That looks like that might make a lot of sense.
All right, Northern's at 97%. Yates is at 63%. So Northern can handle that. That was good for them.
So could we then start to look at the stuff that's in Liberty on the Yates line to relieve Liberty?
That's a good idea.
So maybe these guys in here.
Yeah.
Yeah, 113 A and B.
Where is that?
On the other side of Winchester Road. That shouldn't be a problem.
There's Paul Miller, Fortune Drive.
Oh, this
Yeah.
one is there.
There's probably nothing there in that portion.
Summerfield.
Oh, it's Hudson.
It brings Liberty down less than 100, and it brings Yates up to 75%. We're getting closer here.
Yeah.
All right, so what do we want to tackle next? Let's leave this here again. We can always go back. We're getting, we're going to do that end spot too. So the next time we'll definitely have this at the beginning, whatever we come up with in the next hour.
Sure. So we feel good about where Northern is. Can we see what that district looks like just so we can make sure that they aren't
Zoom out.
they are contiguous? I'm going to give everybody $1 here.
It's not the prettiest, but it is contiguous.
Across the street.
Well, if we're,
Leave it for now and come back to it.
yeah, we can come back to this, but if we now move away from that and go south,
The lane's down to 127%.
well, that's what I'm saying, that now we go south and try to fix all of those, doing the same exercise. Everybody on board with that?
Mm-hmm. And we'll be able to see how many students we have moved into this, what that number looks like.
Not at the end of this, but I will be able to get you that number.
Later, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so you wanted to move south to Lansdowne? Is that what I heard?
Yeah.
So you got Rosa Parks at 123.
Can we take just a quick second and look at that non-contiguous section of Southern Elementary?
Yes, that non-contiguous section.
So Man-O-War,
This area?
Yes.
Yeah, that's Center Park. That's Center Parkway, basically.
Trent,
That's Trent.
Trent Boulevard.
Trent.
Right, that's right. Yeah.
Just out of curiosity, I want to see how many students are in there. Total of 136 students are in there right now.
A lot of free and reduced lunch.
That would about put Mill Creek at 100% then, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I was just looking at that myself.
Aaron, what'd you say? I didn't hear you.
I said if you put all of those kids at Mill Creek, which is right down the street from them, it would put Mill Creek at just about 100%.
Yeah, Mill Creek.
And then you could shift kids from Lansdowne to Southern Elementary.
Okay, so Mill Creek is just right at 100%. And now we have Lansdowne still, Southern down to 82%, so we could take some of Lansdowne and go to Southern, like the southern portion.
Right. Yes. Yeah, all of those right there, 450.
I have a feeling it's going to be probably more than we can hold, but let's see. Yeah, so it's a little bit high.
Hey, is it possible to add our free and reduced lunch columns on the left of it, just so we can be mindful of it when we make these changes?
No, it can't show them both, but if you want to see what the free and reduced, I can switch it over. It just takes a second.
All we need is one column.
No, I can't. It doesn't do that. I can't show both the actual numbers and the free and reduced at the same time. Sorry.
Let me suggest that we might not want to do that right yet. Anyway, let's try to finish this exercise, and because I think we are going to have some issues when we take a look at that column. But let's try to stay focused and get to an end point here.
So, Scott, I know that people who live in 558, 563, they're a divided neighborhood, Veterans Park and Southern. Did some of those shift into Veterans Park and even out that number?
Yeah, I can sure give you. Yeah.
is, so.
We're at 86 at veterans right now.
Some of these.
Well, there's 93.
And could Lansdowne take these?
Yes, I think that's what I was going to suggest.
And then I'm going to just take this and see if Southern's going to go here. Lansdowne at 100%, Southern at 98%, Veterans Park at 96%. I think we just eliminated a non-contiguous area.
Perhaps. But we still have, sticking out there is Rosa Parks. That seems to be.
How many students are in 615? Because they're crossing Passenger Road.
Which one? I'm sorry.
615 is Veterans Park in Mill Creek right there.
Yeah, I see it. Go 27.
Is Veterans Park accommodated that?
Just about.
27 would get it right at 100%. Perfect.
Okay. So we got Rosa Park still out there. Is right. That's at the 123. And that's the second highest after
Cassidy. Yeah. Russell Cave.
Do we want to see if we could take a little bit of care of that?
Hey, Scott.
Looks like. What's that?
There's a pocket all the way down south. It's a non-contiguous area for Clay's Mill.
Yeah.
And those kids drive by 3 schools on the way to their school.
And Pickadome's is there as well, right next to it.
So have we completely just thrown out the socioeconomic part of it? Because that's what we're doing. When we move that big pocket of trips, and we move that, and then we take this pocket of Clay's Mill and where it is located now and move it somewhere else, that's what we're doing.
This process, though, is dealing with one thing at a time. When we get to a stopping point here, we're going to see what those problems are.
To make more adjustments.
That. Your point is correct.
I feel like the way this is happening is we're going to end up shifting so many things, so many times. I mean, this is, we said at the beginning of today that we don't want to move students for the sake of moving them that don't need to be moved. But I feel like right now we've done that several times.
I don't feel that same way. I feel that we've moved, like, getting those non-contiguous areas out of there, I believe is a good thing. And I feel we've made the changes for a purpose.
If you look at this long term, we are moving areas closer to their.
Right, go ahead, Ron.
We can bring your progress there.
I was just saying, if we're looking long-term here, which I hope we are moving areas and neighborhoods closer to their schools. Again, my point earlier was that, you know, of the things that we really want to focus on, one is disrupting the fewest amount of people. That is the one that's easiest for us to deal with after the fact with the grandfathering. Now, I agree that after we see what these maps look like, we definitely want to take a look at the free and reduced lunch numbers and go from there.
But I guess when I look at the Picadome situation and the, what was the other school? Claysville. The thought of driving past 4 schools, I mean, to me that's not a useless move. I don't think the people who live there would think that as well.
I think what we've heard from them is that it would not be a useless move. The feedback that we've gotten has really been about the neighborhood schools, and those kids don't go to a neighborhood school.
I agree. I think those 3 areas at the bottom are kind of, that's pretty good height in the name.
Well, we do have capacity in this scenario
Stonewall.
At Garden Springs, which would appear to be the neighborhood, the closest neighborhood school.
No, that's not right. Garden Springs, the actual school is up above, up by Clay's Mill. It's that whole area right there. It's not the right spot.
That's where the school is up there.
Yeah, so it's another big area that they drive past a bunch of schools to get to. That whole, all 3 of those areas right on the southern line right there.
Well, I don't think the dispute is that, you know, we want to get those neighborhoods near the school nearest them, but those pockets are there for a reason. Maybe we can strategically move around those if we knew what the numbers are. I just hate to redo it again. You know, redo the whole thing, trying to level out the socioeconomic numbers.
Can you elaborate as to why those pockets are there in the first place?
Sure. Some of the pockets that have already been changed were there for demographic reasons. I could identify those. The pockets out here that we're looking at right now with Picadome and Clays Mill and Garden Springs, they're there primarily because Wellington and Stonewall can't handle all the people. In fact, that's one thing, just to look at what Scott did preparatory to this meeting. He did eliminate those entire pockets and wreak havoc. I shouldn't use those terms, but he made a lot of changes to Rosa Parks, Wellington, and Stonewall, and Southern. In the meantime, he had Southern cross Nicholasville Road. There were a lot of changes. So, you know, he showed that it can be done, but it's a huge change.
I think when we get the number back for how many students that have been moved, when we finish this map, we're going to see that it's just as high as what he has done, if not higher.
I don't think
and I want to say, too, that may be the case. Back to the free and reduced. I don't want us to, we look at the free and reduced and think that that is a death sentence in terms of when you begin to look at the outcomes. There are schools that have 100% free and reduced students who have tremendous outcomes. Redistricting is not going to fix and solve poverty. It's not going to happen with that. And so I want us to look at the numbers of capacity first that we're doing now. And one thing that I didn't mention is that when we did a survey of community action, a lot of our families wanted to stay closer to their schools as well. And the majority of those are all low income. We had 500 responses. And that's because of barriers such as transportation, being close to people in your family. But I don't want us to, you know, we have a difficult time trying to spread out capacity and socioeconomic status. It makes it almost impossible. We've done that from day one. But we don't want to, we want to make sure that our recommendation to the district, to the board, is that we look at those schools that may have higher percentages of socioeconomic free and reduced lunch. And that's what we focus on, which may not be resolved in this particular planning session. But we can't, it's been difficult to do both of those things at the same time. I want us to keep progressing with what we're doing right now.
I agree with that, which is why I'd like us to stay focused at least on guidelines that we're following, and then get to a stopping point and take a look and see exactly what it did. How many kids have we impacted? What is it like on free and reduced lunch and meals? And so, you know, we may find that it's horrendous. On the other hand, we might not. It might be okay. So, but going back and forth and trying to do it, it's too much of a puzzle to be able to do that.
Because based on the sheer nature of where people live in Fayette County, you're always going to have a problem trying to be able to adjust, and people live where they can afford to live. So you're going to have an issue you can't resolve with us changing lines unless you're going to be busing people back and forth, and people don't really want that either.
Totally agree.
Alan, I think we're going to keep going with what we're doing. See if we can finish the police.
Yes, I Mike, you're right.
In this area down here we're looking at, Stonewall's the only one that has any kind of appreciable capacity. So let's see what we can work with Stonewall. What do we think to maybe one of these areas, or could go there, which makes more sense.
Do we have a lot of students in those three areas, those non-contiguous areas? I would think that, yeah. Yeah.
Let's see. In this Clay Mills area, 95 students.
How many?
And 95. In the Picadome area,
We'll be able to add some of that in the place deal back in Cleveland.
there is 256 down here. And in Garden Springs, this area here, there are 280 students. So we've got over 500 students in those three pockets.
New school spot right there.
What a school there.
Yeah, with my expertise, I say you need a school right here.
Yeah, and Picadome. One of two.
And Bob made a very good point. I was able to get contiguous areas, but I did make a lot of changes doing that. And I brought a lot of things pretty far down just to be able to do that.
But we ended up with a lot of neighborhoods that we didn't want to.
So Veterans Park back up to 143% capacity?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's that?
Well, Veterans Park is 143%.
No, when he was doing that exercise of finding out how many are in the Garden Springs area, he tentatively assigned Veterans Park.
Oh.
Sorry about that. Okay. Maybe we leave these alone for now. Maybe because I think we should concentrate more on Rosa Parks.
I agree.
Yes.
I don't think we're going to be able to not take these as non-contiguous. So Rosa is at 150 students over.
Stonewall, there's no contiguous school that's got capacity.
Yeah.
Can you tell us?
Rosa Parks is 150 over and Garden Springs is 180 under.
Can you tell us how many students are 456?
I'm sorry, which one?
This Euro. That's where the airport is.
There's 3 students living in the airport.
They're just there till their flight gets there.
I think we can say all of those, don't you?
Well,
So what, how many students are in 415 and 416? Can we move those to Garden Springs? How many students?
Wow, how close is that?
Harrison is under, James Lane Allen is over, Rosa Parks is over. Could we shuffle some from James Lane Allen to Harrison and then some from Rosa Parks to James Lane Allen?
Yeah.
Okay, so if you go to Harrison, that's at like 68% capacity, shuffle James Lane Allen, and you say pick it up, into Harrison to fill that to capacity, that opens up room to shuffle some other kids out of Rosa Park, use capacity there. Harrison is your ticket to move everything.
So you're saying bring some of these up into here,
Yes.
and then
Yes.
move that down. Heck?
Hey, Scott,
Yeah.
tell me how many kids are in 569, 568, and 539.
Okay. I'm experiencing some technical difficulties. Let's hold on.
Okay.
Can you see my screen again?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, good. All right. What attendance area is that in?
Rosa Park?
Makes sense since that's what we're talking about. Okay. These three down here.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
There are 158 students in those three study areas.
Firebrook.
Excuse me?
That was a question for the group. Is that the Firebrook neighborhood?
Palomar.
Okay, can we put those three in the Stonewall?
Yeah, we could.
Is it better to move those or to move ones that are in Garden Springs over to Stonewall?
You know, we got all those non-contiguous down there that need to go to Stonewall.
How about
Moving the whole neighborhood right there.
If there are, I mean, that's across Harrisburg Road. I personally would rather see some of the non-contiguous kids move into Stonewall.
Right there, you just jerk the whole neighborhood out of one school into another one.
the Garden Springs is already under, so we can't really move. Why would we move kids from an under?
I thought that's what we were up there looking at Harrison, trying to.
I thought we were trying to take kids out of Rosa Park and get them in an underpopulated.
Right, but if we're also looking at neighborhood schools too, you've got that whole section that's being built all the way down Harrisburg Road, and that's, I hate going down Harrisburg Road. I avoid that at all costs. I can't imagine taking my kids to school there every day.
Well, we're talking an awful lot about being as least disruptive as possible, but these are some neighborhoods that need to be.
I don't think these neighborhoods would have a problem.
No, they will need to be disruptive.
They want to be disruptive.
And he said it doesn't affect it. That's not socioeconomic reasons, just because of the way, you know, when they open the new schools. So
Taking all of Palomar out to do that, I think, is more disruptive than keeping them having to drive 30, 45 minutes to a school, you know, Garden Street.
30, 45 minutes?
6 minutes. Oh, easy.
To get down Harrisburg Road during rush hour?
Easy.
Yeah.
I made that drive, and it's fine. I'm just talking. I'm not talking as a board member. Sorry, I'm talking as a parent. I mean, I don't think there's anybody in that area that minds being that distant.
You think they want to?
You know what? We also can come to have this as one scenario, and then decide, okay, let's take a second scenario that moves some of those non-contiguous areas and maybe comes down and brings Garden Springs down here, so we could bring Rosa Parks down and Stonewall down a little bit to take some more. So we don't have to settle on just one scenario. We can do two if we want to. And maybe take notes of where we want to go back and look at. Where are our problems? Where are our suggestions?
Well, where we are right now, no more moves, at least in terms of capacity. Looking at the entire county, that are significantly under capacity. Harrison, Blaze Mill, Garden Springs, and on the other side of the ledger, we've got Russell Cave and really Ace are the two that are significantly beyond capacity. So
do we want to look then at areas that are along the Russell Cave, Mary Todd line and see what we could put there?
That would work for me, Scott.
I'm going to it.
Thank you.
Mary Todd is under also, though.
Right, I'm saying from Russell Cave to Mary Todd, since Russell Cave is over.
Yeah, Russell Cave's at 117.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry.
66.
Well, how about bringing this group into Mary Todd? Takes from Deep Springs also. We can definitely bring 63 and 66A.
Oh.
Wow, there's a lot. Is that apartments in that area?
The big one simple explanation on this: Russell Cave is obviously in a rural area. All the students, the substantial number of students, have come from those three zones along the edge of Winburn's neighborhood. So there's McCullough, Ward Drive. So any one of those might be enough going to Mary Todd to relieve Russell Cave, like 66B.
66B has, oops, missed it, has 66 students in it.
Yeah.
And Bob, those are apartment buildings, I'm assuming?
Yes, primarily.
So we don't want to really, I mean, we could take this pocket out, but then it's kind of in no man's land between everything else.
Yeah.
Yeah, much of that blue area to the left is Winburn, and so 66A joins area that already goes to Mary Todd.
So there's 103 students here, 90 students in there, and 66 students in that one.
Russell Cave is over by 52 students over the back.
Well, this balances out nice because, you know, it's percentage on something that's a small school like this. This now would bring it to 262. It's 13% off, and we still have some room at Mary Todd. That I think would work.
I think so too. What's the problem with doing this?
I don't see a problem. I think it works.
Especially in the neighborhood, you're badly.
It's already split. The only way to utilize Russell Cave is to split that neighborhood. Well, there might be some of the obvious way to utilize Russell Cave.
So we have Booker T maybe and Ace to look at.
I think we're in all acceptable ranges here. In terms of capacity. Now, can we go back and look at the overall and see how many neighborhoods we've split up?
What about Booker T? It's still at 111%. Do we need to do something with it?
It borders Harrison, which is also still under capacity.
Maybe we move from Booker T to Harrison then?
Right. Harrison is still the case.
Move to about Sandersville, it's 136.
How did they get there?
Yeah. Julia's Martin, 110.
Yeah, it's 107.
Sandersville is at 107.
Okay. Our sheet says something different.
Well, we've been changing that.
We moved everything. He can't see it.
So Ace is at 117% and Booker T is at 111.
Harris has some room.
Yeah, I think the suggestion with Booker T and Harrison was a good idea.
That is good. Can you bring up the Booker T and Harrison area?
Set it up.
Booker T, and here's Harrison.
How many are at 147 or 143?
These three here, okay.
What about 213?
213's in Harrison.
Okay, yeah, going the wrong way.
That brings them both within acceptable, I think.
Yeah.
Now you are increasing.
Yeah, it was 140.
That's splitting the neighborhood.
The only question is that split neighborhood? Does anybody know? Bob, does that split up the neighborhood?
What street is that?
I mean, this is the Georgetown Road corridor. You see the V there? That's the intersection of Georgetown Road and Newtown Pike for the rallies. So as you go up Georgetown Road, some people would say that's a neighborhood. It's hard to say what a neighborhood boundary is in that area.
Let's see. I'm gonna turn on a world image. That might help.
How many kids are in 142? Because that is kind of, like Ash Street's I think, a fair dividing line.
Yeah, but that side of the street is all one big neighborhood.
Is it? Okay.
You can just have Douglas, Washington.
Oh, this is
Scott probably has a neighborhood overlay. It might not answer the question, but it's got that overlay.
That would be very.
Scott, you want to show them your neighborhood overlay? You have that, don't you?
Oh yeah, I do.
referring to.
So that area is all Georgetown Street Neighborhood Association.
Yeah, but I think if that levels up those two schools, I think that'd be a good challenge.
Yeah. So this area is all a neighborhood.
I don't think you're going to have any complaints. I'm not going to hear no complaints about this thing.
So what do we think? Are we going to try this one?
I think,
Yeah.
Yes, that's right.
Well, they're not. People don't make no complaints.
Okay. Are we? Should we move on? Is this still discussion on this one?
Can we take a look at the whole map with the neighborhood overlays?
Sure. So many neighborhood overlays, it's going to be hard to show what you want to show. I'm not sure what are you trying to see, if we've kept neighborhoods in?
For eight, look at the areas where we've changed. At Australia. Scott, this is Lexington, Kentucky, right?
I think so, yes. So these blue lines are neighborhoods. Let me turn off the names real quick. And let me turn off the study areas. Okay, so here's where we have our neighborhoods. And was there anywhere in particular you wanted to look at? I know when I split study areas, I do try to look at those things, neighborhoods. So if I split, I'll either take a whole neighborhood or be able to split it in half, where you could take both of them if you need to.
Can we zoom in on Todd's Road?
Todd's Road, you say? So you've got distinct neighborhoods, but it doesn't look like we split any neighborhoods here.
We look at the 8th Creek non-contiguous area.
Right here.
11 students there in the non-contiguous area.
What, is that fire?
Wouldn't Squires be closer to them?
So that area is assigned to Tates Creek Elementary. Gray area is Squires. The white area is Julius Mark. The green area is Nathan's Child.
Is there a reason that was assigned to Tates Creek?
Yeah. At the time, they were a little bit concerned about the growth, and that Tates Creek had room, and that they could go to Tates Creek, and then it didn't grow in terms of elementary school students as much. A little bit of concern about socioeconomic balance, but primarily capacity.
So would we be okay with putting them in Squires so they're not?
I think that makes sense.
I think it makes sense.
There's only 11 students. I think it makes sense too.
They're developing.
Right. It may grow to more than.
Yeah, that's right at the line.
Go over to the area where we moved a bunch over off of near Wellington.
We didn't move anything with Wellington.
Well, in that general area over to the left, Stonewall.
Okay.
Oh, on the other side of Harrisburg Road.
You guys?
Scotty wants to see the neighborhood.
So here's the neighborhood. So we moved the entire neighborhood over.
Palomar out of here until we figure out what we're doing with these non-contiguous areas. I think that was a completely unnecessary move until we figure out what we're going to do with these other areas. So can we put those neighborhoods back?
Okay, you want these go? These went back to Rosa Parks.
I would like was back in Rosa Park. Unless others disagree. Let's see what it does. It's going to run the number up, but I think Stonewall, the capacity that we have in Stonewall would be better served to do something with these non-contiguous areas.
We still want to go as best we can to the closest school without it as much distance. That would not be the best place.
Right.
Remember, this is
these non-contiguous schools out here, like Clay's Mills, Garden Springs, they're already under capacity. If we take those out and put them in the Stonewall, then we're just creating a brand new problem.
Well, I don't know how we can spend as much time talking about how important neighborhood schools are while leaving half of 40513 sitting out here and being driven that far. That doesn't make any sense.
we also, again, like I said, we can make it where this one we're really concerned on just getting everybody under capacity or close to it, and then maybe we do a second scenario where we really do concentrate on those non-contiguous. So we've got two things we're working on at some point. We could do it that way, but you know, it's up to you guys.
Alan, do you have your color card?
Do what?
Get your color card. We can vote red, yellow, green.
Oh, sure. I'm sorry.
If you have your colored card, you can vote red, yellow, green.
Oh, yeah.
I forgot about those, didn't you?
Are we voting on the general, or are we voting on Palomar?
I guess my thought was that Palomar, Rosa Parks versus keeping in Stonewall. It seems like we're divided on that, or?
I would rather vote on the scenario for two maps for one.
Yeah.
What we're presenting.
think Lester makes a good point. Why don't we do both maps? Leaving that as it is, and then the others moving the stone wall back to Roosevelt.
Oh, I got it red.
Lester, were you suggesting that we have a vote on one map versus two?
Being that it looks like we're going to vote on something. Instead of, I agree, instead of going back and forth, make a decision, vote.
I also thought we agreed.
Well, let me make sure that I know what we're voting on.
Are we not putting it back?
Is that for either, whatever the question is?
Go for it.
Then the question is, do we leave the scenario as is, or do we vote to have two scenarios?
Before we vote, can we see what the change does?
Yeah, I think we need to see those numbers. Scott, if you could do that.
Okay.
Either way, we know that we can make changes later on. This
Sure.
is not the final anyway.
Oh, no, this is not.
Yeah. I want to make sure everybody's aware of that.
To be clear, we are voting a final decision here by any means.
Very true. And so, what?
All right.
So this is one version. What's the other version you want to see?
Where we move the Palomar neighborhood back from Stonewall to Palomar, to Rosa Parks. I'm sorry.
How many students are in there?
Right now, it's like perfectly equal with that, with Palomar and Stonewall, 98. If you put it back, it's going to...
I understand the process, and believe me, I'm not sure that I do. We have 3 cards, but for this vote, we really only need 2, right? One scenario or 2 scenarios.
Okay, so that brings this back up to 800 and Stonewall down to 775, or to 603, if we did that.
That gets Parks to 123 over capacity, 23% over capacity, and Stonewall then recedes to 78%. All right, so the vote is a green card means 1, a red card means 2. Okay? Green means 1. Let me write this down. Red means 2.
So one's leaving it in and two's taking it out.
Sorry?
he said, like, say this map is a go, and then do another one. And
Right now we're just determining what we want to have left over tonight. 1 scenario or 2. All right? And green means 1, and red means 2 for Tana. You ready to collect?
And don't forget, we can always go back and change everything we've done.
I'm assuming
It's safe at this time.
yeah.
The difference in the situation.
Stonewall stuff?
If you vote for, it sounds like if you vote for 2, then you'll have to create a second.
so I think the difference in the map is one has Palomar and Stonewall, and the second map will have Palomar back in Rosa Parks.
That's correct. Essentially, that's what we're talking about. We might be able to tweak a little bit of that either way, but overall,
I'm going to look at Harrison coming down a little bit, and all of those neighborhoods down south a little bit, neighborhood lines.
On the screen, that's red.
I opened the can. May I have the floor?
Sure.
Okay, in my mind, one map is looking at the capacity that we've been working on today. The other map, or that's one map. If we vote for two maps, then we're looking to address the non-contiguous areas in the bottom of the county.
That's what we said initially.
That was the initial plan.
That was the initial plan.
So if that's the initial plan for two maps, we're either voting to go with the plan for two maps, or we're voting to just pump out the best map we can. That's what I think we're voting on. So I'm asking for clarity.
That's not the way I understood what you had said previously.
Whether we want one or two preliminary drafts tonight.
Before we go to the next step,
meeting.
the next step will be then looking at some other guiding principles. Okay. So do we want to have two that Scott would send us and move forward, or do we want to have one?
So what are the two maps then that we're...
The two, well...
Let me suggest that you vote on that, and then if you're only going to have one map, then you decide which one it is. If you're going to have two maps, then you decide which those two maps are.
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, that's in essence, you've got two votes.
And that second map, though, we haven't figured out what we're going to do for Rosa Parks.
And you haven't even finalized what the one map would be.
Where's the second map?
Well, we may not want to do anything with Rosa Parks if we determine that we're going to leave it just the way it is at 123%. That's a decision down the road. But I want us to be able to get to a stopping point tonight so that next week or next meeting we can take a look at whatever we've decided on tonight and move to the next general analysis.
I don't know. Vote. I mean, why can't we just have two maps? Just two drafts.
I think we leave it at this one now because, again, we're just doing leaving a spot that we're saying. We're not satisfied with this map. Let's leave it here right now. Come back next Tuesday. The first thing we tackle is maybe getting Ace and Cassidy down, and we'll leave this the way it is. For now. We can always tackle it again and come back to it. And then if we decide at that point that we're really not satisfied with it, then we can go with the two-map plan.
Well, one map, other than ACE, has all our schools within what we have determined to be acceptable ranges. The second map gets us with 3 or 4 schools out of acceptable range.
Okay. And I can produce 2. That's fine.
Well, I'd rather not vote and just have the 2. If you could get those to us, get those distributed to us as quickly as we can. And then when we reconvene, we will take another look at those and see what our next guidepost looks like. And I suggest that would be the free and reduced lunch. And see what we have created. That may tell us a lot right there without having to go through these things. Is everybody acceptable with that?
That sounds like a plan. Is that maybe the agenda for the next meeting?
Yeah, sounds like.
From Scott.
Yes.
But you know what you're going to do for the next meeting. 2 maps?
2 maps, one with this and one with these 3 study areas in Rosa Park, the other with them back to Stonewall. Or vice versa.
Have the number of students move.
Yep.
And the demographics.
The free and reduced.
Yeah, the free and reduced demographics.
Right.
I want to make one real quick point. I was trying to track the number of scenarios that we looked at tonight, different scenarios, none of which we have decided on as a decision for anything. But for those in the community who might see one scenario or another and be concerned that we've made a decision, I think it's interesting to point out that tonight we looked at 44 different scenarios, just tonight, 44. And as we can tell, we can't even decide between 2 hours worth of work which one's better. So we're still moving forward. We're narrowing it down. Next meeting should be interesting. I'm hopeful that we can begin to move beyond elementary schools after our next meeting.
Yeah, I think we got a lot of progress done today.
What's that, Scott?
I think we've made a lot of progress today.
Yes. Next meeting is next Tuesday. What did we do wrong?
Well, just one thing. It's more procedural than anything. I don't think that we approved the minutes from the last meeting.
Oh. Well, let's see whose responsibility that was on the agenda.
I believe it says Alan signed.
I'm not sure on my team.
Don't need to stop this. I don't have a sarcasm.
I
need to make a minutes from the previous meeting.
Second.
We have a motion accepted. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
You know what? I'll entertain a motion to adjourn or at least carry forward to the next one. All those in favor signify by getting up and leaving.
Okay, goodbye, everybody.
To me tonight.
It's this day.